Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing fans joining us around the world. It's time for the bout you've all been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We attitude, we moving, and we go into that fight just to land on the line.
Boxing fans, this is the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on a Tuesday, late afternoon, I guess you could say. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Shoot, you know what? Okay, cool. So anyway, hope everybody, like I said, is doing okay. Some people are saying they can't hear me. Let me make sure that is not the case, and I'll double check. Maybe that'll... All right, so I'm going to check myself. Sometimes it's... All right, so anyway, I really think... Yeah, I just heard myself on the phone, so it must be your phone. Sorry. I just called in and used the exact number that's you, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's acting up on you. Maybe you... Well, I see other people coming in now, so yeah. Anyway... Welcome back to the show. Where am I? Okay, so we obviously have a lot to discuss. No doubt about that. We will start in the ring, of course, which is always my preference. I don't care if Floyd Mayweather announced another exhibition. Now, if Floyd was going to fight Crawford or Spence or something like that, sure. Or Pacquiao, or somebody like a boxer, then I would lead with that. But, of course, we're going to lead with Errol Spence Jr. in his comeback victory over Danny Garcia. We'll talk a little bit about the undercard. And then we'll say, we'll look at what's next for Spence. Manny Pacquiao and his team had some things to say on boxing Twitter that lends you to believe that Pacquiao and Spence is possibly next. Now, we know that maybe Terrence Crawford, that fight was close, according to Bob Arum. By the way, happy birthday, 89th birthday to Bob Arum. I've said this many times. I wish I'd have half the energy he has at 89. This guy is a stud for that, even though there's a couple of items. But, hey, there's a couple of items you can say about me as well, right? But anyway... whether you believe that or not, as far as the Pacquiao Crawford fight, we know that according to Eddie Hearn, according to Pacquiao's team, Sean Gibbons, according to, I said Eddie Hearn, right, Mikey Garcia, that fight was really close to being done. You know what I mean? So it's tough to say what's what. Obviously, 2020 messed a lot of stuff up when it comes to that. It did kind of feel like, Danny was going to fight in January. Well, he was going to fight in January, Danny and Spence, and then Mikey and Pacquiao, and then they meet this last summer. But who knows? Who really knows? It is kind of funky that now Bob Arum isn't even talking about the Pacquiao fight, and now he wants the Spence fight for Crawford, even though Crawford talked about... Well, we'll get into this. By the way, Spence he talked about horses and chickens and kids and that type of stuff after the fight rather than who he's going to fight next, which kind of tells me that there's something going on with that anyway. By the way, I saw a picture. He did get a horse. But anyway, we'll talk about that. Obviously, a lot of people wanted him to call out Crawford and vice versa. There's times, well, even in his last fight, Crawford after said, that he's looking for Manny Pacquiao. Both of them are looking for Manny Pacquiao. It's pretty obvious. Anyway, we'll recap that. We'll talk all about that. We'll recap, like I said, some other action. Billy Joe Saunders in Martin Murray, Arthur against Yard. And then, of course, we're going to preview the weekend. Chris Colbert returns in a fight that's pretty good for where he's at, at his level. Some undercard stuff that I do appreciate on that Showtime card. Of course, Anthony Joshua returns versus Kubrat Pulev, his mandatory. That's going to be on DAZN and Sky Sports box office in the UK. And then, of course, we'll talk about, other bouts that are on the schedule. And then, like I said, there's a ton of news to get into. It looks like Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell have a venue. We'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, we'll go over some current fight news. And, don't get mad. Don't talk about, I don't do enough boxing Twitter. I didn't get, well, actually, I do have a glazier. Just to reiterate what he said about Errol Spence. But we'll have our boxing Twitter segment as well. Bob Arum recently talked about Spence, about the fight, yada, yada, yada. So we'll get into that a little bit. Keith Thurman actually has a couple of things to say about the offer that went to Crawford. So we'll talk a variety about that. Gervonta Davis is calling out a fighter. No, it's not maybe one of the fights that you want. That's for sure. But anyway, we will get into this in just a moment. If this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Of course, you don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show right there or listen to the browser. You can find this platform at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, really almost across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found almost everywhere, including Spotify. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. It's football, it's boxing, it's baseball, it's basketball, it's everything in between. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's live streaming cable. They have the 7-day free trial. Once you sign up, there's no annual contract. The plans start as low as $55 a month. You can stream it anywhere. Of course, they have the cloud DVR. And just for signing up right now, a limited special, you get 30-day free trial of HBO Max. If you sign up for the Max package, that'll already include HBO Max plus a free month of Showtime, which is normally $11 a month. Boxing fans, just so you know, it's called AT&T TV Now. Like I said, live streaming cable. Okay, it seems like everything's good to go. I see some more people in there, so if you want to press 1, like I said, you can join in. A lot of people just kind of hang out and listen. So yeah, just so you know, we should be good to go then. I know somebody had an issue, but like I said, I did call in through the caller line just to double check, and I didn't have any problems. So, shoot, where am I? Okay, so obviously we're going to start, by talking about what happened over the weekend. Errol Spence, like I said, he made his triumphant return to the ring. Wasn't the easiest fight through the first 6 rounds. His style in which he fought was fairly aggressive. It did look like maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. It was kind of a combination. There were plenty of exchanges. There was some back and forth, but I don't know. Sometimes his trainer would try to calm him down a little bit and say, hey, be careful. We are in with a counter puncher. But, at some point, Danny started wearing down too, and he started, more and more on the back foot and whatnot. But, yeah, I kind of thought we'd see a more tentative Spence early and use his distance and his jab. Not that he didn't use his jab. That thing is a weapon, no doubt about it. But he pressed forward. Fairly aggressively, I would say, considering you're falling right into the strengths of the guy you're fighting. So there's something going on with my headset here. What the heck? So yeah, I mean, to me, it did feel a little bit aggressive. There were some right hooks and right or left hook from Garcia in that first round. The second round was pretty close, I thought, early and late. Some nice right hands by Garcia, left hooks, and some pot shots by Spence in that second round. Maybe you gave the second round to him. I don't know. It was a close fight. Or close, not fight, but close round. I gave Spence the opening round. I gave Spence the third and fourth as well. Garcia did land nice right hands, especially early in the third in a combo, but the jab and some body work, both of them were putting in some work to the body. And some hard left hands. He was pretty aggressive, was Spence, with that hard left hand pretty early in the fight, and then more left hands and jabs in the fourth round. Now, the fifth round, that could have been a Garcia round, that looping right, some more body work as well. I thought he got in some pretty good shots. At times he would land something good. At times you could see he'd be a little bit on the move. At times Garcia would get cornered. So it was kind of a combination of all that. And then it seemed like in the sixth round, after Danny had some good rounds, you could see Spence was turning up the pressure, starting to land hard combinations. Now, Garcia in that sixth round landed a really hard right hand on Spence. And I don't totally remember, but maybe that was the round that Derek James was like, hey, hold on. In the seventh round, Garcia had some late shots in that. He had a nice shot to the body. I'm not sure. Do you give him that round? I don't know about that. Then you started to see Spence with the double jab and more hard left hands and more body work. And he just kept the pressure up. Like I said, down the stretch, there was some inside stuff going back and forth. Garcia had his moments, like in the 10th round, no doubt about it. More jabs and hooks and lefts to the head and the body, kind of switching that up from Spence. Overall, though, pretty clean win. I'd say the most clean win. Thurman against Garcia back in 2017, he had a chance to beat Garcia more cleanly, but he kind of gave away the last couple rounds on the move. Otherwise, this is the most clean Danny Garcia, has been beaten. On the show and even in my prediction article that I write weekly for boxing on the Grueling Truth and Eastside Boxing and whatnot, I said somewhere in the 8-4 to 10-2 range, so let's just split it and say 9-3, something like that. And I had it right around 9-3, 10-2. I did see some 8-4s, which that's fine. Two of the scorecards, the official scorecards, were 116, 112, so 8-4, and then the other one was 117, 111. Both of them were active. As far as throwing punches, both of them threw over 700 punches, and when you're at a top level, that's not always the case. But the jabs were key. I mean, overall, 187 to 117, Spence outlanded him, and his overall punches were 26% compared to 17. But the jab, 84 to 14. Like I said, both put in body work, but that was really key. I thought that was really key. So overall, though, I thought it was a pretty damn good performance considering you've been off for, over a year, right? It was over a year. So, I think it was a pretty good one. I thought it was a pretty good performance. I wouldn't give it like some sort of A+. And he even said, a B or whatever. So, but, to be out of the ring that long, to have some what ifs going in, you could see that above Spence's right eye, there's some abrasions that probably will just be with him now. And I'm sure his eyes will luckily it's not necessarily the actual eye and below it and just above it. It looks like a lot of the damage was on his forehead too. I mean, obviously the right eye got messed up. You could see that in the pictures, but and swelling and all that. But that might be something he's just going to have to deal with. But who knows? Either way, he took enough shots, and I remember off the ropes, or kind of off the ropes in the corner anyway, Garcia landed a hard right hand, and it was like, oh, he stood up to it just fine. He kept pressing. So a lot of questions answered in this one as far as is Spence going to be okay? Because a lot of people had, including happy birthday Bob Arum, and like I said, our guy Clays, they had the inside information that Spence will never be the same again, and Al Heyman's lying and all that. That's more of a Clays thing. I'm not saying Mr. Bob Arum said that. But yeah, I mean, a really good performance. Very good performance. All things considered, like I said, is it his best outing? No, but I thought it was pretty good. I did think it was pretty good. So just talking a little bit about this stuff here. Pacquiao, Sean Gibbons is a pretty – he usually will kind of let you know what's up on Twitter, whether it's in the comments and the replies or whatever. And, like, he'll put that's BS, or he'll go, or he'll say Viva, or, something. It's pretty easy to see that. And he generally sticks with that. He generally does, hang around some comments, or not hang around, but he'll say something, right? If things are true or not or whatever. I mean, there was, some time when Bob Arum was talking about, this is more like in August, talking about how the Pacquiao and Crawford fight is getting discussed and negotiated and all that. And I think he said that in the past before, and Gibbons just said that's just not it. There's not some kind of deep negotiations. Now, I haven't really seen a bunch of comments in this last run per se. So we still don't 100% know if Bob was 100% honest when it comes to, the fight with Pacquiao and Crawford, and it got all messed up because the country, I believe, is in the Middle East. It wasn't Dubai, was it? I can't remember now. But anyway, they said basically it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? Like the money's not there. The money's not there because of coronavirus, and that's perfectly fine. But it is kind of funky when you start to hear rumors of Pacquiao and Spence and stuff like that. Now all of a sudden Bob, quick to the trigger, Bob had, an article already. Meanwhile, Manny Pacquiao, by the way, this is a couple of days ago, this tweet's from December 3rd. Manny Pacquiao has been elected president of the PDP Laban Party. He's looking to run for president of the Philippines in 2022. And we knew that was part of the plans, just in general. I did discuss how it kind of did seem like they were kind of lining up Spence and Pacquiao for this July, with both of them, one with Danny, one, on the other side of it, Danny Garcia and Spence, obviously what we just saw, what was supposed to be in January, and then Mike Garcia make a big payday, and then, so we've kind of, that's kind of what it seemed like, but then the coronavirus came in, and then also Bob Arum has been talking about how he's actually going to get the fight, and that type of thing. But I guess the only way he can put on the fight is in a different country, because there would be such a huge site fee. And obviously, Spence has the advantage of the site fee through Dallas, obviously, even if they wanted to do it at Cowboy Stadium with Pacquiao. Clearly, Spence would have the advantage there, just because he already is a draw there. Would be a bigger gate. Spence and Pacquiao is a bigger gate, a bigger pay-per-view than Crawford and Pacquiao. That's not ripping terrence. That's just how it goes. But Now the MGM, would they be? Well, it's not even the MGM actually. Would it be? It'd be more that big stadium. Could they do it there? But it does. I don't know. It does seem like the only way Bob's willing to do it so he doesn't lose money or have a chance to lose money is if it's just a huge site fee. And maybe they got stuck up. Maybe the coronavirus thing, it seems like that's true. But sometimes when you're dealing with the Middle East investors for boxing, I mean, let's be honest, it's really only been one big fight. That was Joshua and Ruiz, obviously, the rematch. But other than that, we'd always heard about all these offers and, it's going to be big and all that, and then it kind of falls through. So you never know until the fight gets done. I'm not saying that the coronavirus didn't affect it, though. That lines up, too. I just don't know if he's trying to say this stuff so the media spreads it so it looks like he's doing his job for Crawford. That I don't know. But, Manny Pacquiao did come out and say, hey, good job, great work, or whatever he said to Spence. So he said that, and I think Spence said, thanks, buddy, or something like that. That's like a Midwest thing to say, hey, buddy, what's going on, buddy? I say that all the time. But, there was a little bit more talks or whatever about this subject. And, Sean Gibbons, Knucklehead Sean, at Knucklehead Sean for Twitter. Obviously, he's involved in many promotion, Manny Pacquiao promotions, and he's part of that team. And this is where you can get good information about Manny, not just hearsay. Well, this is Kevin Aioli. He said he just spoke to Sean Gibbons, Knucklehead Sean at Twitter, of MP Promotions. He said Senator Manny Pacquiao said he was impressed and thought Spence looked good. Still has the fire to fight in 2021 and would like to take. And, like I said, you didn't see Gibbons. I haven't checked today, but I checked enough, I'd say. And usually Gibbons, especially when he's right in the tweet, he would say something. And not necessarily even say something, but just some sort of emoji or something that let you know if there was truth to it. So, like I said, that wouldn't surprise me because that's what it looked like. I mean, and sometimes it comes down to style, to be honest with you. Manny in the last chunk of years has said that numerous times. I like the style in which this guy fights. I like, he's not looking to chase anybody around the ring. He's not looking at a guy that's going to be super, super crafty and have a bunch of different game plans. And he wants to fight. He wants a guy to come to him, basically. Now, whether Mikey Garcia would have been that, that's a good point, right? Maybe not. But it's not like Mikey's on the move all the time either, though, on the back foot. So anyway, after that Spence Mikey Garcia, we all saw, Manny in the ring. He said, yeah, maybe this could happen, whatever. And obviously it didn't, but it wasn't really going to happen in the fall on a normal year anyway, except for the coronavirus now, because that was the thing about Cowboy Stadium. They were really not in favor of doing fights during football season, but things change around really quick when you can't have full attendance. And I think would they get 16,000 or something like that, which is pretty good though during a pandemic. Obviously, that would have been probably close to 50,000, 50,000, I'd say. I don't know why it wasn't, considering the last fight there. But when you look at the Porter fight and how many times Spence got hit, and even there were plenty of rounds where he didn't get just hit super hard, and he did roll with some of those punches and partially block some of those punches Spence did from Danny Garcia. But still, Spence does, for the most part, come to you, and he may make some adjustments the way he did with Porter. He was actually leaping out against Danny more than we've even seen, rather than taking a step to the side and counter with that left hook or whatever. So maybe he sees something like, hey, between the Porter, who I'm faster than, and between Danny, who I'm definitely faster than, maybe there's something here, Or maybe that was just the plan and the plan got mixed up. So now he's like, well, I only got a fight or two left. Now could Manny fight McGregor in July and put Spence on the undercard, and then they fight in January? Then I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't even know. I doubt that the to be president and the election cycle is as long as it is here. I'm just assuming. We're just, it's probably not dragged out to that level. But anyway, that's what we know now. Now, this is what I find kind of interesting. Bob made sure to go, to somebody, theathletic.com, through boxing, of course, with Greg Rosenstein, sorry. And this is what now he's saying. Bob Arum, Errol Spence Jr. is hiding behind Al Heyman, doesn't want Crawford. So, and not long ago he said it's not Crawford, it's not Spence, it's actually the coronavirus. We can't make this fight without it, or without a full crowd. And I actually do believe that. I actually definitely believe that. But and who knows in July, what the capacity will be. I mean, during the peak, which is right now, some people don't realize that, but during the peak now of COVID, they still allowed 20%. So in July, when by that time a lot of the frontline folks and the elderly folks will have already been vaccinated, and we will start to, it seems like April, May, and June, be able to get more to the public if they want to do that. That's another story, right? But I'm not ruling out Vegas in general because they do have a large stadium, but they are in Nevada, so that's different than Texas, as we know. When it comes to this, when it comes to a lot of stuff, but when it comes to this subject. So if they're allowing 20% now or whatever it was, I'd assume it'd be at least allowing double, half at least by July, at least. And who knows? Maybe they'll make it mandatory mask and just say, screw it. I really don't know. But like I said, a lot of people wanted Spence not to talk about his horses or his cows or his kids after the fight and call out fighters. And I got to admit, generally speaking, I do like when fighters call out other fighters after a fight, especially if it's an event that people are going to have their eyes on. So I understand the criticism there. He has done that. Sometimes most of the time he has, but he didn't do it this time. Now, maybe that's because he knows something. I don't know. But, when asked what's next to Crawford, when he had a big audience watching, he just looked at Bob. And the only thing they said about Spence was, we could fight Spence and Garcia on the same night. That's it. They're not on the level. And the money's there for Manny. It just just once that coronavirus thing gets hooked up, then or goes away, but lessens. And of course, travel. If you're going to travel, and I'll talk about this when they're talking about Australia here too. And Bob makes a great point. Like, if you're going to travel and you got to quarantine for 2 weeks, that doesn't fit into a boxer right before having a fight. And then what are you going to ask the guy to go out there 10 weeks? So then you got to pay for the guy's lodging, or he does. Teofimo Lopez in this sense is what I'm talking about. But he didn't mention Pacquiao. Didn't mention much. Pacquiao was the fight they wanted to make. But now that there's rumors, all of a sudden, now he's a little bit different. And this is what Spence said. I'm going to chill on my ranch. Oh, just to clean it up. Crawford looked at Bob. Bob said that. They talked about the Manny. And they said, what do you want? And he said Manny Pacquiao. Crawford did. So, and for some time now, Spence and Crawford have both said they want Pacquiao first. And it does build the fight. And I've always said, I said this a couple of years ago when Pacquiao was still with, Top Rank. I wanted Crawford to get the fight. Shoot, Pacquiao was willing to go to 140. I would have liked Loma to get the fight, whatever. But now that, he went to the other side, across the street, I do want Spence to get the fight. Because he's like one of the last, he's from the, obviously Canelo's out there, But as far as the, changing of the guard at any sorts, whatever level it is right now, it's still something, that's for sure. It's still a bang. It's just not what it was, of course, 5-10 years ago with Manny, but it's still something. There's no doubt about that. I just wanted that. And whether it was Crawford getting it, and he still might, or Spence. And then they can fight. Now, if they fight first, of course, I'll love it. I don't give a shit in the end. But selfishly, I did want one of those guys to get it because I know it's got a better shot of the fight actually happening. Anyway, this is what he said. I'm going to go chill on my ranch. I just bought a ranch with a couple of horses, chickens, 2 cows, my children and family. And he did, by the way, go buy a horse because he was tweeting about it and whatnot, showing pictures and the video and all that. Why didn't Spence call Crawford out? This is Bob Arum. Why didn't, Crawford was ringside. I'll give him credit for that, which I do appreciate. Arum said he doesn't want the fight. Now, he's always said that Spence, well, not always, but for a while he said Spence wants to fight. That's and now he doesn't want to fight. And why should he do that fight? In his position, if he can grab money fights, who he really doesn't have a problem with beating. And he talks about it's not like the 70s, or it's not like the 80s and the Four Kings and all that. But, let's be honest, in this, I think they did a good job in this article of telling the whole thing, because there was a time, I think after the Crawford-Khan fight, that he said boycott all this stuff, even though he had never made a real true offer to Al Heyman to fight Danny Garcia or Porter. It's all been press runs. That's just the truth of it. But did I play it last week or the week before? I think it was last week. Bob said he had inside intelligence that Spence is not going to fight again. That type of thing. So you got to remember, if all you do is down stuff, and like I said, he had turned the corner on Spence, that they both want it, but right now it's coronavirus, so, whatever. Or even actually a year into, whatever, after that Khan fight, a while after that, he did say that him and Heyman did have some conversations, and I think that they know, we talked about money. I think that's part of it too. Arum said it really hurts the sport that Spence wouldn't bring up Crawford's name Saturday night. And this gentleman who did the article, I thought he did pretty well, because he said, well, Crawford didn't really, by comparison, didn't have much to say about that after Kell Brook, which is true. He believes, and this is talking about Arum, Pacquiao, the generational superstar, crossover, appeal, and it'd be bigger. It's a bigger fight, bigger money. And Arum said Arum knows that that's not what the fans are clamoring for. So I guess it's okay when Crawford if Crawford and Pacquiao fight, then the fans are clamoring for that. But then if Spence and Pacquiao fight, they're not clamoring. He believes that the Crawford-Spence fought on joint pay-per-view, similar to what happened with Fury and Wilder, that they could pull 700,000 to 800,000 pay-per-view buys. And he also said he charged the customer only $60, not that ridiculous price of $74.99 or whatever, $75 basically. It says that in the paper I just read, or not in the paper. God, I just dated myself. Anyway, what was the price of Khan in Crawford? Maybe that was $60. Maybe I forget that. That could have been it. That could have been it. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me check really quick, because I've never really heard him say we would. Yeah, it was $70. I just checked. So once again, I mean, come on, dude. Like, that's a horrible price. I would do 60. Well, I mean, so it's okay for Khan and them to. But, that's just basic stuff. No big deal. So, he's out there kind of, doing what he does. But at some point, that's why I kind of like the way, because usually the Athletic with Kopp and Polgemeyer, it's usually not like this. But Rosenstein, he did a good job here. I got to give him credit. So yeah, he basically says, Arum had yet to speak to Crawford, but says he knows he'd do the fight in 2 seconds, even though it's 60-40. That they both say 60-40 and all that. If he made one call talking about Al, we could make the contracts in 10 minutes, which is not totally fair. I don't think that's right. We want to make the fight with Spence, but again, it takes two to tangle, and Spence isn't hiding with Al. And he said, a lot of this stuff, he's not going to do another Crawford fight, period. It doesn't make sense until the earliest would be late April, May. And he says, hopefully we can do this on a 50-50. But this is also what he says. Spence, he believes he's on track to success qualify. If Spence isn't Crawford's next opponent, another option is former welterweight Sean Porter. On Saturday, Sean said that as well. But Arum's not sold. So now he's not sold. Not long ago, not long ago, he was like, we want Porter. That's the fight we want. Actually, last fall, wasn't it, with Mean Machine? He was all about Porter. And even this summer. But obviously the coronavirus plays into that. A great fight, but it's not a big fight. It's not a fight that really, moves the imagination of the sports fan, blah, blah, blah. And anything else is anticlimactic like Garcia and Spence was. So, it is kind of funny now, even Pacquiao and Spence and Pacquiao and Crawford are anticlimactic, even though he said that's the fight that they're really going to try to make once it gets over. So you decide what you think of that, but that's about it when it comes to that main event. If you look at, there were some other fights, obviously, Jose Cito Lopez and Francisco Santana was really fun for a handful of rounds, right? They kind of buzzed each other both, it looked like. There was a knockdown early. I think it was body shots and combinations. I think it was 2 left hooks. He definitely had Francisco buzzed, but, all of a sudden, I think it was a right hand in the exchange that looked like it kind of buzzed Jose Cito. So the first chunk of rounds, they were fun. It was back and forth. It was basically what we expected. And then Santana really started to wear down. And Jose Cito looked good. He was attacking the body at one point. I think I wrote it down here. I think after the 6th round, it was 32-1 when it came to. He was in control. He was wearing down Santana. And Santana was hanging in there, but it didn't seem like he was going to be able to take, much more. I think it was 2 overhand rights and a left hook. 10th round, a left hand knocked him. It was a TKO. They could have probably, stopped it a round prior, but you know how that goes. Really, the corner probably should have done it because sometimes the refs take too damn long, right? But overall, fun fight until it became very one-sided. But kudos to Jose Cito Lopez because Santana hadn't been stopped in what they say, 12 years, 10 years. So still a really good performance. He outlanded him 190-84, and just beat him. And Jose Cito Lopez. Will it be Jamal James? Will it be Ugas? I don't know. I guess it could be Porter or something like that too, but I'm not sure. I would say Lipinets. I'd still be in favor of the fight, but Lipinets, performance that many thought he lost, or at least it was a draw anyway. Sebastian Fundora, unfortunately, his Jorge Cota, I think at that point, I actually still want to see it because I think where he's at, it's a good fight for him. I know people think Cota and think Charlo and Lubin, but remember, Cota has fought some other people. Didn't he have a draw? He had a draw with Rosario. So it's all about where you're at. Much like Shakur Stevenson this week, a lot of people are down on his opponent. But remember, dude, this is his 15th fight. This dude serves a purpose in his career, regardless of what you want to see. It still serves a purpose, and he's been moved pretty well, I'd say, Stevenson. But anyway, Habib Ahmed, that late replacement. I mean, the optics are always funny, when you look at Fundora in the ring. Obviously, Ahmed is not that big, but Ahmed was an experienced fighter. Gilberto Ramirez, stopped him. There wasn't much in the fight. Unfortunately, that fight, like I said, I think the Cota fight would have been a lot funner. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see that really, right? Well, not really at all. So that was a bummer, and that kind of put a bummer on the actual card. You know what I mean? It was what it was. We weren't expecting some kind of great card based on the paper, and I did expect Santana to be more two-way. I would say that, but that's about it. However, the first fight was pretty fun. Eduardo Ramirez against Miguel Flores, who this is another late replacement, I think, because of COVID. We've seen Flores. He's a tough dude. He's fun to watch. So I like this fight. Not that you could give, 2 rounds or something to Flores, or maybe you wouldn't even give him a round, but it was fun to watch. That's for sure. Ramirez came out and landed some overhand lefts, a few hooks to the body as well. And he was pressing early. That second round, he came out ready to press. Flores was firing back sometimes to the body really well. I thought Ramirez just landed the better shots, but two-way in the third, very much two-way fourth round. It just seemed like the whole fight, basically, that Ramirez just had that perfect distance. He was in attack mode a good chunk of it, but he also was not laying back, but like I said, he just had that perfect distance. And then in an exchange in the fifth round, I think it was a counter right hook that knocked him down, and he ended up just stopping the fight. Just a mouthful of it looked like a mouthful of blood on Flores when he got up, but when you saw that replay, and that was one of the best shots they've had on Fox on these pay-per-views, or just in general, that lip just split open right off the bat. So really good performance by Eduardo Ramirez. He moves to 24-2-2. Got a knockout there. That was a really good performance. I like him. We're gonna see where he's at because he's at featherweight, right? We're gonna see where he's at. I'm excited about this. I kind of want to see how he fits into this division. But other than that, the card played out pretty much. I mean, we had some fun round feature once Cota was off. It was like, boy. But, it is what it is. What else did we have? We did have Vito Melnecki. He got his win. He went rounds. He started with a knockdown. There were some two-way moments with the Polian, I think it is. Stephen Polian he fought. To me, he scored. I think he scored knockdowns pretty early, 2 of them, didn't he? But this dude held on, and he probably wasn't active enough. Maybe throughout the whole fight, there was some two-way moments, but I thought that Vito needed to use his jab a little bit more. But I thought he looked pretty good. But he's definitely a work in progress. He's so young, so it's tough to, go too deep in on that. The Lucas and Isaac Avalera, that was a fun fight. That was actually that Delgado and Brooks was a fun fight too. I forgot about that. Let's talk about that for a second. Now, Brooks came in. Well, both of them. Well, no, Brooks came in 6-0. Delgado came in 6-1. I think Brooks was a stablemate. That's what it was, a stablemate. Is he on Man Down Promotions too? I don't know, but Delgado took it to him. I mean, the first round, you could give to Brooks the jab. He actually punched him pretty late after when they were holding. But also Delgado, was working the body, and I also thought he did a pretty good job of, giving him some inside rabbit punches too, like just to make up for that late shot. But then, let's see, did I give him another round after that? I mean, it was tough too, because the harder shots, whether it's looping to the head or left hooks to the body, I mean, Delgado was taking it to him. He had the jab, the left hook, these roundhouse or looping rights. And there's times where Brooks would get back on his jab. And I think it was the second or third round. I think it was the second round when Brooks got hurt. I mean, he stumbled on his leg. It looked like he was going to be out. And I think the last few rounds I gave to Delgado. So, and he won the fight. 59-53 on 2 scorecards, and 57-55 for Brooks, which was just ridiculous. There was 2 low blow penalties in the 5th and the 6th, actually, by Brooks. One of them was really low, but he did have a warning, but I thought the warning was for hitting him super late after the break. But I wasn't totally sure about that. But either way, Delgado outpunched him 90-65, I think it was. I mean, he took it to him. It was a good performance, and I definitely want to see more from Delgado. And, we'll see where the rest of that goes. But that undercard fight, like I said, with Lucas and Avilar, that was a good fight, dude. I think the first couple of rounds, the better lands were going to Isaac Alvarar. He was landing heavy shots to the body. Once in a while, pop up to the head, with left hooks mostly. But there was some give and take. And then Lucas would land his hard right hands. He did that a couple, especially late in rounds, I noticed. But between the jab, between the better shots, even some of the two-way stuff like the 5th round, maybe Lucas closed stronger in that round. But overall, through the 10 rounds, I definitely had Avilar winning. But good back and forth action, hard right hands from Lucas. Even when I gave him the 6th round as well. I'm looking at it. It was 8-2 is what I scored it, but a fun 8-2. Good stuff from both guys. It just seemed like the better shots, the cleaner shots, yada yada yada, right? In the short left hands, like the short left and right hands and straight lefts were big for Alvarar. I really want to see more of him. He won all 3 scorecards, 98-92. I thought that was the funnest fight. I thought, as far as two-way and all that. And those were on the prelims on FS2, actually, not FS1. College football was on FS1, I believe. So, I liked what I saw out of those 2 fights, but especially that last fight. So that about wraps up. And there is 20 minutes left of the live stream. 646-381-4990 is the number to dial if you choose to, want to talk. For the people hanging out right now, you can press 1. I'm not going to go to you. You don't have to hang up. Just let you know. Yeah, I think that covers everything, right? So overall, I liked the Spence Garcia fight. I thought it was interesting, and I thought Danny did enough. But to see Danny on the move that much, he kind of got into survival mode, and he kind of got into, I'm just going to try to either pot shot him or, I'm just going to try to land the one big punch, because he was working the body early in the fight and throughout the fight. But then that went away. He just didn't want to open up. We all know. A lot of people say, he should have just went nuts. It's like, yeah, when you open up, though, that's when you get hit the hardest. So I'm not going to say full survival mode, but he definitely, and he even admitted, Danny did, about the jab. I mean, he was like, dude, that jab was nasty. I just couldn't get through it. And so we'll see where Garcia goes from here. And like I said, Danny Garcia and Jose Cito Lopez be a good fight. What else we got? We have Martin Murray and Billy Joe Saunders on DAZN. I think that would be on BT Sports over there, right? Or no, I'm sorry. It would have been on Sky Sports. How many rounds could you give to Murray in this one? Not many. I mean, he had some success, don't get me wrong. He had some times where he was applying pressure and jabbing well. And then it seems like even in I'm looking at the fourth round. The jab combinations, the left kick to the body, that's what I saw from Billy Joe Saunders for the first 3 rounds, 3 or 4, and throughout the fight. Then he started adding a bunch of uppercuts too. He was really kind of going for it. That's about as much as Billy Joe Saunders is going to go for landing hard punches like in rapid combination. But even like the fourth round, behind that jab, Martin Murray was, bringing the pressure, and he had some success actually. But then Billy Joe Saunders not only stole the round in general, actually there wasn't a knockdown. I thought it was a knockdown live, but it wasn't. But the straight lefts, I mean, he stole the round. He was busier. Like I said, he added some movement and some pivots, encircling him, and then he'd throw a hard combination. Then he'd stick him with the jab. So, like in the 8th round, Murray didn't go away easy or anything like that, but it was pretty much a one-sided fight, pretty much how we thought it would be. It is nice for Billy Joe to get out, though, and his body looked good. Like I said, he didn't look he just didn't look – he looked sharp. He didn't look flat. He looked pretty good. Now, obviously, some of that has to do with the opponent, and I've always liked Martin Murray a ton. Shout out to the UK. And, he came up short on some fights. The one that really stands out, obviously, is Sergio Martinez in that storm from Argentina. So, good performance. I'll have a little bit more news when it comes to him and what he wants to do next and what the belt's going to tell him to do and all that stuff. That'll be in the fight news, the current fight news segment. We'll have some other news and, of course, boxing, Twitter, and whatnot. Also on that card, dude, one of the best fights of the weekend as far as just two-way stuff, I got to admit, what is it, Courtenay and Norik. Dude, Norik was like aggressive to the point where it was overly aggressive, obviously. But she came out, won the first round. Now, Courtenay did land late in that round, but she came out guns a-blazing. And in the second round, that Norik, was coming out so hard, she was, going for the two-leg takedown or a tackle or something like that. But I did notice at the end of that round, I gave Courtenay that round because she was kind of trapped on the ropes, but she started unloading with a couple of big shots and some body work. And she was just the sharper of the two. That left hook to the head and body was really nice. Just like a knifing right hand and more left hooks. Her jab was tight. Just better shots overall. But, there'd be times like in the 7th round where Norik landed a big shot. But then to end it all, it's funny because, I don't even know, 10 or 15, 20 seconds before that Norik, this is, I think, the 7th round, 8th round, Norik landed a good shot on Courtenay. And she's like, it almost pissed her off. She's like, screw this. Bam, right hand knocked her out. Kudos to both these boxers. I mean, kudos to both of them, dude. That was something else. That was a fun fight. Like I said, to me, that was probably the most entertaining fight. There was some entertainment on those undercards, like I mentioned, on the FS1 especially, but this one, I think, did it all. This one, flipped the bill. I don't know what the hell I'm saying there, but it did the trick. So shouts out to, I think is it Shauna or is it Shannon? Courtenay, I think that's how you say it. She came up. She's sharp, dude. She's the whole baby face assassin thing. I think that's what it said on her trunks. That fits because she looks like she's a teenager, but she's skillful and she comes forward. She was just better, but that's not taking anything away from Norick because she fought really well too. I thought she did a damn good job. So to be honest with you, shouts out to the UK. I think this was the best fight of the weekend. I know some dudes just are, anti-women's fighting, and it's not your cup of tea. Okay, whatever. That's on you. Some of these same dudes will watch two old men fight each other, but whatever. It is what it is. Everybody's got their own thing. No big deal. And then the Lyndon Arthur against Anthony Yard. This was BT Sport. Actually, you know what? I think it was. Wasn't it on Fight? Yeah, because I don't think I could find it on ESPN Plus. I actually just watched it on Daily Motion, to be honest with you, yesterday. So, but I saw online. I think it was Jake Donovan that said, "I'm not going to pay pay-per-view for this on Fight TV." So I wonder. I just assumed because of the deal that it was going to be on ESPN Plus. But honestly, I just remember that saying it, so I went right to. Actually, I saw it on YouTube. Now that I think about it. It is on Daily Motion though too. I know that because someone sent it to me. This was a close fight. I think Arthur won it, right? But it was close. Could have went either way. I gave Lyndon Arthur the first 2 rounds. It was slow as hell, the whole fight. Well, not the whole fight, but pretty much all of it. So it was like tit for tat. You couldn't really choose, well, which one did you like there? So I gave Arthur the first 2 just off the jab, Second round was a little closer. Third round, I gave it to him too, but that actually, the YouTube version I watched last night, it kind of got a little groggy in that round. And when it does that, I don't like to score the full round, but from what I saw Arthur winning that. But then I had Yard winning the 4th, 5th, and 6th because he started landing his jab and then a few right hands on top of it. I mean, the 5th round went right back to just at times very slow. Kind of dreadfully slow at times. But with like 60 seconds left, 50 seconds left in the 6th round, another nice right hand, kind of a whacking right hand. That's about it. Now, the 7th, that could have went either way. Another slow round. No clue who won the damn thing. I'm not going to go watch the damn round again. I don't know. I'll give it a draw. I gave Yardy because of jabs to the head and stomach. The 8th, now, jabs mostly from both guys, again, in the 9th round. So that could have went either way. I think I gave it to Arthur, but that could have went either way. 10th round I gave to Arthur. I thought jab and a few body shots he did kind of mix in there. But, Yard landed a late right hand. Maybe that stole the round. I don't know. I gave the 11th and the 12th because the better shots in hooks and overhand rights finally in the 12th by Yard. But it was a 2-way round. So like I said, it could have been 6-5-1, 6-6. I'm okay with Arthur winning, but I didn't think he won cleanly. I don't think either guy really won cleanly. But in a fight like this, when it's just not a ton to report back, how mad, I guess, can you get? You know what I'm saying? How mad can you actually get? But someone responded to my text on the show. I said Pacquiao versus Spence next. That's part of the different things I have for the show on Twitter. And this dude James says Pac not fighting Spence. Sorry to break it to you. It's sorry to break it to me. Oh, you know what? I think he's in my boxing Twitter segment now that I remember. That's right, because he said some. I've followed that dude for a while, and I like a lot of the stuff he tweets, and he seems like a cool dude. But sometimes with this Crawford thing, this Crawford-Spence thing, people just their feelings are into it, which is good, because that tells you people are going to be pumped for this fight. But I have seen people that I follow, and I'm going to continue to follow, unless, they're on some ignorant shit. I don't believe this is what this dude's about at all. But I'm saying anybody I follow, as long as you're not tweeting some just beyond ignorant shit or obviously racist or something like that. And I'm not putting it on that guy at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in general. So I follow a bunch of people on Twitter too. So I've noticed though, and it really comes down to who you're fans with, the fanboy stuff, or who you favor in the fight, and I've always said, because of different game plans. Now Spence has shown that he can take his time and get that distance and all that, but will he do that against Crawford the whole time? I don't know. So I've always leaned Crawford just because, he can switch stances, give him a different look, and we've seen it on the outside. We've seen him on the outside. I will say this, though. Like, that Postol fight kind of opened up my eyes to Crawford even more. Neither of them are great defensively, by the way. But that Postol fight opened up my eyes because he chose to go on the move and do the smart thing to win the fight. However, it is Postol coming forward. You know what I mean? So I don't think Spence has fought a skilled guy that can move, because Kell Brook is very skilled, and he can move some, but not like Crawford, and then obviously the Porter fight was a brawl. The Mikey fight, he inched forward and showed me a little bit more, but then again, Mikey on the back foot is not the same as Crawford. But like I said, Crawford hasn't faced a come forward fighter with a legit jab where his game plan is to come forward. Postol's game plan is not to come forward. If you've seen his fights, that's not what he loves to do. I mean, it matters who he's fighting, but so because he won 11 rounds, Crawford, I give him a ton of credit, and that opened up my eyes to, man, I kind of lean him now in this fight, whereas I was kind of on the fence. I'm still on the fence, though. I haven't made an official prediction. I'm not going to until the fight happens, but if I'm going to say that about Crawford, you also have to know that he hasn't faced a guy with a jab that comes forward either. That is actually a come forward fighter. That's a comfort level. So yeah, I guess he's got some insider information. He thinks Crawford and Spence is happening next, which it would have to be a full arena, in my opinion, for that fight to happen, and that's something even Bob Arum has said. So he thinks Spence and Crawford's next, but if he, I'm not sure about that, because, well, one of the reasons I just gave, right? You need a full capacity to get that fight made, because you're going to need every dollar you need to make that fight. That's just period. Now, having Fox and ESPN would help a ton. We know that. And this year, knock on wood, that the NBA, they only put out half their schedule, which I think was really smart. But in June will actually be the second round of the conference finals. And in July, I think July 8th to the 22nd, I think I read, that's actually when the NBA finals will be this year, because they have to obviously push it back because, they're starting the season later. So, that would be nice to have that. And so I think there's something to that. But my point is, look at it from a perspective of the whole scenario. Not just, well, I think this is going to happen because of this. I mean, that's fair. But if you look at it, so they're going to so Crawford's already said 60-40. Now, maybe he's the A side. He said this numerous times. And Spence did too. Remember, it all started when Spence had a couple in him, and he went up there talking about Prograrius and all that, Regis Prograis. And he said, I'm the A side, you got to come to me and all that, right? And both of them have kind of talked out a turn that way when they've been buzzed or sober, whatever. But maybe, recently we heard, I think it was on the Cop and Pug podcast, I believe. that Spence did, because they said you are the A side. How do you expect that to break down? What do you think that? He said 60-40 or something. So he kind of left the door open a little bit. Whether that's 55-45 or whatever the hell. And Crawford said I'm 60-40, and he said he's the A side plenty of times. And we know he doesn't need he needs me. I don't need him and all that. And I expect fighters to think this way, the whole he needs me, that type of thing. I get it. I get it. I'm not mad at either one of them on that. But if you're thinking about it, so let's split the money 50-50, right, in this. And in this pay-per-view setup, Crawford would have 30% of his money taken. And then and then also your manager, who it is a manager-trainer, so maybe there's a discount in there. You know what I mean? I wouldn't doubt if there is. I doubt that, I doubt he takes like 15 or 20 and then another 3 or 5 or something like that. But who knows? I don't know. But I don't know. If you just wait for your contract to come up and go and just do a 1-fight deal or whatever, 2-fight deal with Al's only, at best, Al takes 15% of your money, right? So that's half of what Bob will take. And we've already heard numerous times that once you start making, $5 million, $10 million, then the percentage goes down even lower, whether that's 10 or 5. But that's been the ongoing feel that's what happens. So why not, sure, it is a risk. I understand what Bob's saying. It is a risk to take both those, to have to pay both those guys. But the fighters can get more money out of the total purse fighting with Al. That's just a fact, dude. Top part of the money, the overall purse, technically doesn't need to be as high because he's taking less. And if you don't believe me, I know I said this a while back, and I got, of course, but it went down to my DMs. But, I'm not going to do it, but I did read this back in February. Literally, Bob Arum or whoever tweeted it, literally said that, that's what's happening. Like, this is what I take out of. He was talking about Tyson Fury. He gets so, when you're they obviously aren't on great terms. So it's kind of like, and I'm talking about Bob and Terrence, but Terrence did say we can move past this and all that. And Bob, already said why, already handed it off to his stepson, Todd DeBuff. But I don't know if that's just Bob in a bad mood or whatever. But that's what it comes down to. So this guy thinks Crawford's next. Crawford and Spence is next. So I don't know. Maybe that's true. I surely don't know for a fact, and nor does he. But there's some heated moments, but this stuff happens when it's a big fight. Pacquiao and you found out about who was boxing fans and who were fanboys. When that Pacquiao stuff came out. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. Now let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit of news, but we are going to talk about. We'll talk news in a little bit, and then someone actually just texted me and added something for the Twitter segment. I appreciate that. But we'll get into the weekend preview first. Okay. So Anthony Joshua, who about a year ago, right? About a year ago, but he had a rematch with Andy Ruiz, and he won the fight fair and square. People don't like how he fought. I was actually impressed that he showed a different side of him. Now, obviously, Andy Ruiz had a different side of him from the first and second fight, but that's his own fault. He's taken on Pulev. Chris Colbert is I think, in a good fight for where his career is at right now. Same with Shakur Stevenson. I actually like that fight for him. I'm not saying it's some kind of awesome fight, but I do like the fight for him. Actually, in a little bit on not 5, but 5 TV from Tijuana, Mexico, there's some fights. There's also from Mexico, UFC Fight Pass tomorrow. There is Sam Eggington and Ashley Theophane, but this is in England, but as far as I know, there's no TV coverage. Lawrence Okoli, unfortunately, Glowacki got COVID, so he had to be taken off the card. I thought that would have been a really good fight for him. It sounds like he's going to just fight this dude and then fight him next. Huey Fury and Walk are fighting on that card. That's DAZN, obviously, in the States. Sky Sports box office overseas. And then Chris Colbert, this is on Showtime, December 12th. Going against Jaime Arboleda. Let me look here. Let me get this out here. Arboleda. Like I said, for where he's at in his career, I don't mind this fight. I think it's a good fight. What else we got? Shoot, my schedule's kind of... Oh, yeah. I like this fight, too. Matt Korobov and Ron Ellis, 10-rounder. Korobov has had some bad luck of late. So another one as far as just prospects. And Mayweather's promotions are known to put their prospects in tough and move them, not at a slow rate. Richardson Hitchens is taking on Arrhenius Mendez in a 10-round, 140? Yeah. To me, like I said, is it just, that's the fight of the weekend? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying at a prospect level, good fight to face a vet like that. It's not going to be a walk in the park. I do think Colbert and Korobov will win. I wouldn't be shocked if Mendez got upset. Pulled the upset on Richardson. He's a guy that has a lot of name recognition on the hardcore level because of his amateur career, Hitchinson. But as a pro, Hitchens just hasn't looked all that great, I'll be honest. So this is a 10-round fight, Mendez. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I'm going to go with Mendez the upset. Now, when I say that, it may look that way in the ring. And, as we know, how it turns out on the scorecards is different. So I don't know. Obviously, he's, a Mayweather fighter, so who knows. But I actually like that fight. And then on the same night, ESPN Deportes, Shakur Stevens and Toka Clary, is that it? A 10-round fight. And obviously this was pretty much short notice, right? Because Oscar Valdez and Miguel Berchelt were going to fight on that date. So, you can look at it as like a little bit of a bummer or whatever, but, it is what it is. There's not much you can do when it comes to that. I wonder what the lead-in will be. Let me check really quick. So LSU against Florida is the lead-in, which even though LSU is down this year, Florida still did a healthy rating in the last game that they had a blowout in. So maybe LSU with nothing to lose will play good in the first half and it won't be a blowout right away. But that's still a healthy probably 2 million, 2.5, 3 million lead-in. So, and obviously the lead-in is a little bit, actually I just got a text on that. I forgot to talk about that. This is usually the weekend they do the Heisman, but obviously it's pushed back because last week in December 5th, that's usually the conference championships. This weekend is usually an open weekend, the next couple of weekends before the bowl season starts for college football. Well, obviously they had to push it back. Now, there's this weekend, and then there's one more weekend, December 19th now is the conference finals. So the Heisman's after that. So that's why they don't have the lead in Heisman. However, they still have a pretty dang good lead-in, I would have to say. So, but going back to this fight, dude doesn't have like a ton of fights ton of good wins, but he's got a good amount of fights. He's got like 30 fights. It seems like he's got some pop. He lost to Kid Gallahan a couple years back, probably about 2 years back, by decision. There's some names on his. He had. I'm actually looking at it. He got knocked out in 2016 by a dude who's 14-7-1. But he's when you look at his resume, it's not full of great names that he has wins or anything like that. But or not even really particularly that good of wins. But he's an experienced guy. And like I said, Kid Gallahan's a pretty good fighter, and he went the distance with him. So as a late replacement for Shakur Stevenson, I fully think he'll win. He could win by like TKO or just a decision. It is a 10-rounder. So in your 15th fight, it's kind of cool because he just is filling in a few weeks, a month ago or something, 3 weeks ago, I don't remember, but they basically had that fight, called off from COVID. So because Burchell got COVID. So, is it a great main event? No, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that, but for what it is, they filled in nicely for it, I guess. Edgar Berlanga tries to keep his first round knockout streak going, so that's always interesting. I think he opens the card. Maybe it's Clay Collard. Maybe they'll sneak that in there, that rematch with Lavalius or something like that. Robisky Ramirez is on the card as well. But the one I'm really looking forward to, actually, Felix Verdejo against Nakatani. I think that's good. So Verdejo against Nakatani, and I like that fight a lot because Nakatani gave, as we know, stylistically wise, gave Teofimo Lopez, and I know some things were going on in his camp and weight and all that, but he gave him a good fight. So also Fight TV has a card that same night. A lot of cards this week, and I suppose everybody's trying to get out while the getting's good for the rest of the year. So that about wraps that up. Anthony Joshua, I think he'll win. I mean, there is a potential that, I don't know, I just feel like he's learned his lesson when it comes to just, well, when I say learn his lessons, I still think there's going to be times where he swings for the fences or tries to knock a dude out and get caught and get buzzed or whatever. I'm not saying that's just gone, but I think he's learned his lesson for the most part, especially how you start the fight. And Pulev does have some skill. The last couple of fights, he's shown, I guess you could say, what he's capable of. He only has one loss by knockout, and that came to Klitschko. Like Ustinov and old Tony Thompson. Well, I mean, yeah, fairly old. Derek Rossi. I'm looking at some of Dominic Gwynn. Looking at some of the guys he's fought, on the way up or whatever. And Chisora, he had a split decision with Chisora, actually, in 2016. So, I mean, he's a good fighter. And he's 6'4.5". He's got a 79.5-inch reach, so it's not like he's just going to be lost in there. I really think that he should, work the body like we've seen him and up top, not just rely on landing one big shot to hurt him or something like that. I really think that he could be on the move and do some things that could fluster Joshua a little bit because, Joshua Parker was not Joshua. Joseph Parker. I swear to God, since those two fighters have been in boxing, I've messed up that name. I've called Joshua Parker. I've called him that so many times because of Anthony Joshua. I don't know why. But Joseph Parker, he's a guy that isn't known to be on the outside. If you saw him coming up, he would really brawl. especially when he started getting on like the contender level. He would box a little bit, but he'd also try to throw a bunch of punches and knock a guy out. But when he fought Anthony Joshua, he was on the move for most of that fight, and he did pretty good. It kind of flustered. He didn't win a ton of rounds. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a 7-5 fight, and it, like I said, if you're not standing right in front of Anthony Joshua, like his offense, he's just still a little stiff, and if he's got to cut the ring off on you, he's not as good. He's just not. So, I don't know. I really don't know. If he can kind of emulate Kubrak Pulev, which I think he has the skill. I'm not saying that he's going to be on the move the whole time, but just kind of even an in and out, pivoting, circling, and jabbing. And like I said, when he's got some skill, he's got some quickness, and I think that he can win a couple rounds here. Whether it's, I'm not saying for sure 7-5 or nothing like that, but I wouldn't be shocked if he won a few rounds in this fight. I mean, I know he's the big favorite and whatnot. I get that, but I think it's a decent fight for him, and it has been a year. So he's been off for a while. I mean, both of them have, obviously, but actually, when is the last time? When was Pulev's last fight? Yeah, it was over a year ago, so they're both out of the ring like that. So, Chisora, Samuel Peter, Kevin Johnson, Huey Fury, Dinu, that was on ESPN, I believe. I'm obviously, on a boxing fan perspective, I would like to see just to be fun. But, it is what it is. I think it'll be a competitive fight, but I do think Josh will win. He might TKO him. It might be by decision. I wouldn't be shocked if it was by decision. So we will see. Gervonta Davis called out a fighter for his next fight. Some people wouldn't say he's a fighter. Jake Paul for the co-feature of Mayweather and Logan Paul. Now, that would actually be a good spot for him. But obviously, Floyd gets some heat for this type of fight, but Gervonta would get a ton because obviously, he's in the prime of his, career, and he'd be fighting a very novice fighter. But from a name recognition, yeah. I also heard, Jake Paul keeps saying that he wants to bring MMA dudes who talk a bunch of crap to him in the boxing ring. So he kind of knows what he's capable of right now. So I think that's why, I don't know, he's just more realistic is my point. We did actually hear a video in which Keith Thurman, and this is on Boxing Insider from Miss Insider, and they addressed the whole $10 million thing, and Thurman said, I never actually give a number. I'm just willing to negotiate back and forth. And right away we heard $5 million, like right away, but then we heard $10 million, and it came from Crawford, but it also came, from Bob. So once again, did he go with the press run and just want the Kell Brook fight instead of Thurman? I mean, it was going to be a rush anyway. That's, we do know that. But who do you believe? It's tough to say. But even if he sent $10 million, you still could try to negotiate him, and then at least when you go, then it wouldn't be just such a press run. It's say, hey, he wants too much money. We tried to say we'll do it for this. Then he came back with that. We tried to move it up a little bit, but there was no negotiating. It just go right to the press. And that's when it's generally a press run. So who do I believe? Bob or Keith? Because I could say Crawford, but Crawford and that's where he's getting that information. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure. What I do know is they didn't take it serious regardless of whatever it was. But he was like, "Hey, send me." I don't really know exactly how it went. It did kind of sound like they sent an offer over, but maybe it was hey, let's do the fight. Let's start negotiating. I don't know. But time-wise, like I said, you have to put that in there. And the Kell Brooks fight had just been talked about more, and it was more like aiming more for that in the Pacquiao fight, of course. That's what Bob says anyway. But, they were aiming for that. So Kell Brook was already on the page somewhat, but they did offer Kell Brook some money, and then he came back, and then they went up a little bit, and they negotiated with Kell Brook. I think that most likely, though, he could have just came out and said, and I'm talking about Bob, that this fight's not going to happen without a gate. But instead he said, well, he asked for $10 million. That's crazy. Now, Keith Thurman just reporting it that he said that I didn't give him an amount. I never talked the amount. Show me your offer, and then we can go from there. So, not that it could have been made in November, because I don't believe that. Just because, Thurman wouldn't have been ready in November anyway. But it kind of speaks to how this keeps happening over and over again. Danny Garcia, or Angel Garcia getting call from someone from Top Rank high up, saying, hey, I want you to know the offer, but then they never send it to Al. They don't really have negotiations. Arum talked a good game about Porter, but then I don't know. And even Crawford recently in interviews saying, or actually on his IG, he said now that everybody's losing, now they want to come and talk to me about a fight. And I can understand that because that is boxing. But there's something. So what Crawford's saying, and all these fighters are going to get defensive, and they're going to say, well, Kavaliauskas hasn't lost. Yeah, but he just came off a draw, dude. So let's not act like he was, some kind of great opponent. But everyone does that. Everyone defends themselves. That's just the name of the game. And you know what? You and I would do it too, because it's easy to sit on the sidelines and they're not talking about you. But when you're a fighter, you do this for a living, and then a bunch of people are harassing you on social media, you're going to get defensive too, regardless. But he did say now they want to fight me after they lost. But, let's back it up. The Thurman just lost his first fight, but he fought Pacquiao. His run was Porter, Danny Garcia, Jose Cito Lopez off a layoff, and Pacquiao. So, him saying, what was it, 2018? Yeah, 2018 is when Crawford fought Horn, so that was his first fight at the weight class. And he acts like, well, I've been calling these guys out for 5 years or 6 years. That's just not true. Now the Pacquiao thing, 2015, 2016, 2017, it did get talked about more. And also, it did seem like Pacquiao was willing to go to 140, right? Because he said that for the Loma fight too. But clearly Bob, and he said it truthfully at the start, it seemed, that he didn't want to wait, he didn't want to lose money on the fight, which, that's his prerogative. So, and I understand that. But if we back it up, so you got here in 2018 in the welterweight division. So Porter had already lost to Kell Brook, and he lost to Thurman. So that's just nothing new. And when he beat Danny Garcia, Bob Arum was talking Danny Garcia. When Spence beat Porter, then he started talking about Porter, right? So that kind of throws that out. Like I said, Thurman, now that he's lost, he wants to fight. That makes more sense. But even Danny Garcia lost in 2017. So he lost before you were even in the division. Now he wants to fight. It's like, well, I don't know if it all adds up. But like I said, most fighters are going to skew on their side. That's just how it goes. Because he was trying to make a point of, well, when I beat guys, they're not as good. But he basically was saying Danny Garcia is not a top welterweight because he hasn't beat any of them, which I get. I think that lines up. But Danny Garcia against, Ray Robinson or Kavaliauskas or Benavidez, I mean, are those bad fights? No, I don't think they're bad fights, but I just wouldn't. None of those guys have done anything at either weight class. So to me, you got a better, argument with like Victor Postol at 140 and stuff like that. So it is what it is, whatever. So I'm just going to move on because that topic gets a little old after a while. What else do we have? We just got a bunch of news here. If anyone wants to press one and talk, go for it. I'm not gonna call you out or anything like that and say, hey, I'm going to you. You can hang. Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna. You don't. If you press one, then I'll go to you. It does look like Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell now have a venue. We talked about how the venue was going to be in some exotic stuff that Oscar was talking about. We kind of poked fun at him, tribe and culture when it came to the pyramids, but that was just a joke. I mean, it is what it is. But it does seem like now it's officially done. So they do have, a place to be. This is Oscar, a place to be. January 2nd, same date. And I figured it'd be in Texas. I didn't think it'd be in Mexico. But Oscar De La Hoya tweeted, they say everything's bigger in Texas, so I couldn't think of a better place to welcome the newest superstar in boxing, Ryan Garcia, January 2nd, at the American Airlines Center. So where the Mavericks play, the Dallas Mavericks. Tickets go on sale Friday at Ticketmaster for those who want to know. So that's cool. It's nice that it has some, it'll have some, some fans in there. I don't know what that means. That probably seats around 20,000 if it's an arena. So right now it's 20%. In January, will it go up? I doubt by January it'd go up. Like I believe, like I was saying about Cowboy Stadium and venues in Texas. Once the summer comes, I think, the capacity will be much higher. But I don't know. Is that 5,000 then, give or take? Well, that's 25,000. Yeah, actually, you know what? It may be like 22,000 or 23. I don't know. So yeah, anywhere in the 5,000 range. It makes a difference. I gotta say. Now I do think, because you don't want to have a spread take place at these events, I think that on the ticket it should say you have to have a mask on. I was hearing Eddie Hearn talking about this, and he said, well, if you're taking a sip of drink or when you're eating, obviously you don't have the mask. Anytime after that, then put your mask back on. And anyone can have any opinion they want on it when it comes to masks and stuff, but, there's plenty of data that shows they help. So, and if you don't want to dig for the data, just look at New York City. Now we know it went through hell early on, and it's spiking now. But if you look at June and July, when they really shrunk that curve, right? And you could tell because the death rate went down in June, remember, and then it popped back up once the cases went back up. But not in New York. My point is they had protest after protest, protest after protest, 40,000, 50,000. They had 80,000. I think they even had 100. But a majority of the people, not saying everyone, majority of the people had masks on, and it was outdoors. It was a big area. And some of these arenas, especially some of the stadiums, are huge areas. So I kind of wish they would just make you wear a mask. Some people have them on, some people don't. But anyway, I just don't want there to be some kind of weird spread at one of these, and then all of a sudden they shut that shit down too. You know what I mean? Because it does make a difference to have fans if they do it safely and they spread it out, where then it's no big deal. Like I said, We know what we can and can't do when it comes to this stuff. So if they're allowing it, I just wish they'd make them wear a mask. Literally, you're buying a ticket, you got to wear a mask. That's what they're doing in the UK right now. We'll talk about it. A little bit anyway. So Floyd Mayweather is bored. He Bill Gates hasn't stopped making computers or making money. A lot of these uber rich dudes, making money. So why should Floyd stop making money? I mean, that's kind of the old argument. I remember Roger Mayweather would say, hey, they still making computers? All right, then Floyd's going to keep fighting once in a while, especially when it comes to this. It's an exhibition. Now, I get the people that say they're okay with Tyson and Roy because they're two old dudes in their 50s. My thing is, I don't like exhibitions that there's a price tag. That's just my personal opinion. You have yours, I have mine. But I'm not down for exhibitions that charge, to watch it. That's just me. I just don't like it. So I'm not going to differentiate just because it's Floyd, because I watched a bunch of Floyd fights. I watched a ton of Tyson and Roy Jones fights too, right? So, so he's taking on Logan Paul. And, honestly, I'd rather him fight his brother. His brother seems like he's got a straighter punch. And, oh boy, already lost a fight. Who did he fight? It was a YouTuber, right? Anyway, the only thing, so this is what, February 20th, I think it is. The only thing, well, luckily they waited till after the week during, because Mayweather, I guess him and Heyman must have had an agreement, like, hey, don't go announcing this shit during Spence's, week. So at least they waited till yesterday or whatever. The one thing I'll say though, okay, the one thing I'll say, I like the price point thing. I do like that. I like the incentive so right now the early pricing is $24.99, and that cuts off once there's 1 million buys. Then it goes to $39.99 after 1 million is sold. Starting December 29th, $59.99, and then it's $70, $69.99, starting February 11th. So he's really making sure he's trying to set the record on pay-per-views or something, but he wants to outdo Tyson and Jones, obviously. So that's a cool idea, though. I'm not going to buy it, but that's a cool idea. I do like that part of it. Just because I'm not going to buy it doesn't mean, I can't say something about it and give it credit there. So that's pretty cool. I'm not going to pay $30 for it, or $50 or $60 or whatever, but I do like that idea because it's like, hey man, if you want to see it, if you have some interest in it, buy it now before it hits 1 million, dude. Go for it. I would do that if I was going to buy it. And speaking of this type of thing, Triller and Snoop Dogg have officially, we already knew this was coming, but they've officially launched the Fight Club, after such success with the Roy Jones and Tyson one. So they are planning anywhere from, I think they said 5 to 8 of these, and it's going to be, music groups, more than likely. Well, not necessarily. I shouldn't say it's going to be hip-hop every time. But, they're going to deliver that type of entertainment. They're going to keep doing it. Now, are all 4 of them going to have Tyson linked behind it? I would guess that the Tyson Holyfield would be next. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, we've heard 1 million, we've heard 1.2, we've heard 1.5. I don't know how much it did. Why wouldn't you do more of these? Just in general, you can make money, but it's not just money. It's really, some of that is, their app and getting people to, sign up for the app and all that. So that's what's going to go on there. We'll see what they come up with. It'll be interesting to see the feedback on it, though, because I know some of it was a mixed bag. I know plenty of people that it appeared that they got their money's worth because of the overall entertainment value, and they didn't have their hopes up. They knew the rules for the exhibition. But I also know I got some text messages saying, pre, during, and after, saying, "What the fuck, dude? 8 rounds, 2 minutes. I didn't know this was actually not a fight. And it's like, yeah, dude. They acted like it wasn't, but commission from the jump, And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the Holyfield one will do really good, maybe even more, because they'll think, oh, Holyfield already beat him. Plus, people look at Holyfield like a real heavyweight, right? Rather than Roy Jones, who just popped up there for a second. Well, I suppose he's fought cruiserweights and stuff like that, too, later in his career. But, we'll see. I mean, how many, at some point, are you going to fight like Riddick Bowe or Buster Douglas said he wanted it? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you feel like you're getting an entertainment value for the whole card, then I can't, then it is what it is. It's like, well, cool, Now, I do know, like I said, I'm wondering how many people were like, that was a hold fest, 2-minute rounds and stuff like that. Now, if they make it 3-minute rounds and 10 or 12 rounds, that's going to be harder on the fighters, too. And some people are like, oh, I want to see Tyson against the top guys. The amount of work he already said the camp was hell. And he'd have to train harder to be in a real fight. He already said after the fight he was happy with those 2-minute rounds. But then again, if someone throws $10 million at you in one of the current heavyweights to fight 8 rounds, are you going to not do it? I don't know. But I'm not really interested in seeing him fighting real heavyweights. I'd much rather it be exhibition with 50-year-olds fighting each other. I'd much rather it not happen, but hey, it is what it is, and, I'm sure Holyfield could use the money, so I'm not going to rip him on that, but I'm assuming that's the next one. That's what it sounds like. Speaking of the next one, speaking of a trilogy, Canelo Alvarez, and this is from Salvador Rodriguez from a couple of days ago, Canelo Alvarez downplays Gennady Golovkin trilogy, wants to unify 168. So he's saying, there's the fight I got coming up. There's B.J. Saunders. There's, Benavidez will probably get the belt back with Yildirim. I don't know. There's Caleb Plant. There's Charlo. I'm trying to just do my work at 168. That's basically what he's saying. And he's saying, we'll see about Golovkin, but it seems like Golovkin's I'm the only fight he wants to fight. And that is kind of true now, right? And I don't blame Golovkin, by the way, but it was funny that, I'll fight anyone I want all the belts, but now he doesn't seem interested in fighting that many people. But that happens in everybody's career. It's just people bandwagon on guys. It's like Keith Thurman. People bandwagon, don't duck me, son, and you better not duck me, son, and all that stuff. And then when you get to the high profile, then there's a pecking order. And that's how boxing is. And that's why I think it's funny when people get behind guys and then drop off. And it's like, why did you believe it in the first place? Which one is it? I don't like him anymore. Well, dude, he was just working his way up, dude. That's why. Anyway, if Alvarez wants to make it that a priority, a third fight with Golovkin, would likely have to wait unless Golovkin wins one of the super middleweight titles. So he's saying, all right, go fight Billy Joe Saunders. You're on the same platform. Go ahead. Go ahead. We all know that the only fight Golovkin wants, maybe to retire after, is a fight against me. We were in talks with Golovkin before the pandemic started. We were in talks to make the fight this year, but unfortunately the whole pandemic issue happened and all that was canceled. And that is the funny thing that people seem to forget. Canelo, they were in talks, but they had gotten some of the money figured out. From the sounds of it, 2 separate times. But right now, the most important part, what we have in our mind and other objectives, the first is Callum Smith, as Eddie said, and then we want to unify and continue to make history. So Reynoso continues to say being a free agent is the most important thing we can do. Fights with boxers associated with different promoters. We have a really good relationship, very good relationship with Eddie from Matchroom, Al Heyman, Bob Arum. So we're open to work with all those. But yeah, he basically's like, hey, sorry, but come get a belt, then I'll fight you. But it just seems like they're trying to fight me, just straight up, So it is what it is. That's just a little bit of news for those who just assumed Golovkin was next in May, which it's going to be a lot of money. Upwards of, we've heard 30, we've heard 40, we heard $50 million for that fight. Now, he could talk a good game, but if they throw 50 at him, he might be like, all right, cool. But who knows? This is from Dan Raphael as of yesterday. And this makes a lot. This is what I was talking about, Bob Arum and this whole Teofimo Lopez-George Kambosos fight in Australia. Because I remember they talked about this, Bob and Teofimo. Didn't Teofimo said like $8 or $9 million to go over there? I know Manny Pacquiao got like 15 to go over there and fight Horn. But anyway, talks to make the fight April and May are underway for both sides. I'm 100% in favor of it. It's a great opportunity for Teofimo Lopez, says top-ranked chairman Bob Arum, his promoter, obviously. That's what I'm hoping for. Now, this is where it gets sticky. But Australia is a lot more far ahead than we are when it comes to the coronavirus. So, when the government in Australia gets rid of the 14-day quarantine for foreigners, then I'm ready to move. Because already you can do these fights with full capacity stadiums in Australia. So, but what he's saying makes a lot of sense. So, Teofimo Lopez would have to get there like 10 weeks out maybe in quarantine and maybe even 3 months, So then you'd have 2 weeks of quarantine, then you could start your camp. So, and in the opposite way, if you get out there 2 weeks early or a week early like fighters like to do, well, you can't do that. So Bob makes a great point. You can't sit there in the dead middle of your camp or the starter at the end, because quarantine is like, you can't, you can do push-ups, sit-ups, hit some bags, but you can't do full, you're not going to spar in your, hotel room and shit like that. We've already seen people trying to do what they got to do to lose weight and all that, to stay in shape, but there's not much you can do. Arum's concern is over the 14 quarantine required by visitors is because, he wouldn't be able to have a full camp for those 2 weeks, which that makes sense. Lopez manager said he is also in favor of making the fight, and the quarantine would not be an issue. There is definitely interest on our part. We are extremely open-minded. Everybody is trying to make it work if possible. We are totally willing to go to Australia. Here it is. With the quarantine, we can just go there for 10 weeks, quarantine the first 2 weeks, and then have an 8-week camp. But obviously, it'd be better if some restrictions are dropped. Teofimo's ready, yada, yada, yada. Arum is interested in bringing Lopez overseas, mainly because he feels, hamstrung in the United States because of how difficult it is to do fights besides like in Texas and Florida. We're limited crowds, but Arum is not interested in doing that because of how bad the pandemic is. Right now, I'm in a stalling pattern, blah, blah, blah. That's I get it. I get what he's saying there. So they're saying, hey, dude, we'll go 10 weeks. And hey, if it is what, I don't know this to be a fact, but if it is, if Teofimo says it's $9 million, well, shit, then he probably doesn't matter. It doesn't matter staying there for 2 months, 2.5 months financially, because it's like, well, dude, I'm about to get paid. So maybe he'll do it. And Ludabella actually promotes Kambosos. There's a lot of interest in the fight in Australia. They love big event when it involves in Australia against a big star. So we'll see, man. Arum said Australia works well because besides the ticket revenue, they can also generate pay-per-view closed circuit money here, and they, have the bout televised there. Even though the pay-per-view isn't the robust with the closed circuit and the bars and so forth, for the Maloney dates, we did good money in the bars over there. And Maloney in Franco, they were talking about as the undercard too. I remember that in an early report. So that'd be kind of dope to have that fight. We're exercising the option. That's what for Maloney. We're talking about Lopez and Cambuso in April or May, and Maloney's to headline the card in Brisbane in another month. Okay, so that seems like it's off now. So I just think stylistically that'd be a dope co-feature. I guess that's my point there. So we will kind of hit up, some news here to close up the stuff. Per usual, and of course our boxing Twitter segment. News-wise, and I was actually thinking this is a good fight for Julian Williams as a comeback fight after his knockout. Dennis Hogan, and remember, Hogan at 54 is a better fighter than he's at 60. Clearly 60 does not fit him that well right now. I think Dennis Hogan beat Munguia. I don't even think that's really up for debate. I think he beat him, and that was at 54. So I think that would be a good fight for what it was. It was supposed to be the Fox main event, December 26th, but he tested positive. Oh, I'm sorry. Julian Williams. My bad. Julian Williams tested positive. So is off. Here's some more news that I was talking about with Billy Joe Saunders. The WBA have stated that Billy Joe Saunders will have to face a mandatory challenger next unless they are informed within the next 10 days that Billy Joe Saunders is going to fight Canelo Alvarez or Demetrius Andrade. Appears that the mandatory would be most likely Zach Parker. So, we'll see. Clarissa Shields, who's entering, I mentioned this last week, I believe, entering an MMA league. She's also going to box, though, still. I can't blame her. Clarissa Shields, her quote about Jake Paul, "I'll whoop Jake Paul's ass and beat the shit out of him." That'd be a good fight. What else news-wise here? We do have a fair amount of Twitter, but do I have any more news? Let me look at this. Oh, this is from Coppinger. Top Rank's first stateside show 2021 is set. Joe Smith Jr. will fight Maxim Vlasov for a vacant light heavyweight title match, February 13th. So February 13th, stateside, mind you. That's when they're first. And that kind of lines up with their first fights on ESPN normally sometime in February. The co-feature is Richard Comey against Jackson Marinas as the co-feature. So the plan is, to have Joe Smith and Vlasov fight, and then the winner will probably fight Better BF. I say that because, he still has a fight, but you'd assume that he'll get through that. The rest is like news/boxing Twitter, so I'll just kind of run through some of that. Errol Spence is saying, "Hey, I promise you everybody's going to get a turn. This is chess, baby, blah, blah, blah." He said that he was going to get, like I said, he was going to get a horse. He damn sure did. That's pretty funny. Good for you, man. Oh, here's Pugmeyer. This one's funny, too. Well, first of all, I didn't mention this. I should have, which is no surprise for the broadcast in general. But the Fox broadcast, it's just like Goose and Talk more. Because, I get the whole argument thing. The DAZN crew does the argument stuff a lot, too. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's come on, guys. But it really felt like a lot of crews now, a lot of broadcast teams in the last chunk of years of HBO, where there's narratives the whole time. They're talking the whole time. They're arguing. They're trying to crack jokes at each other and get in digs. And like I said, I'm not saying don't do any of that. But when there's some things happening right before your fucking eyes, you might as well comment on the fight, too. And I kind of pissed off that I forgot about this. I forgot to break this down and say that's bullshit. Like I said, it's no surprise. I get pretty much every team besides maybe the Showtime crew, but still, it is what it is. But yeah, they were talking. It's like, hey, Danny just landed. He had a good last part of that round, and now he's doing pretty good in this round, whatever, something. But the narratives. But this is, and also, the broadcast team, they showed Crawford on the screen when he was there live. They talked about him, and they also said, here are the champions and they did bring up Spence, Pacquiao and Crawford. I think they did that twice. Whereas before they would list the PBC champions, right? And people did have a problem with that, and I understand that. I've always understood that. That makes sense. But they did. I'll say, if I'm going to rip them, I also give credit where credit is due, and they did 2 separate times, I think, put up that graphic for all you graphic heads out there. But I agree with the graphic heads. You should always mention Crawford in there. But when they, it is a PBC broadcast, and as long as they mention, the top guys and Crawford's in that mix, they can also mention the PBC champions in welterweights. That doesn't bug me either. You just got to do both, whereas before they weren't doing both. So this is Lance Pugmire's comments on that. And, like I said, most teams in boxing now are like this, and they're shills and all that. So this isn't something new, but of course, because they know they're never going to get an interview with Al, they don't care what they say about this stuff, where they'll let other teams off. But Pugmire, when asked about the broadcast team for Spence and Garcia, when you operate as shill and not a truth teller, the majority of the viewers and readers can see right through it. And that's a good point, but, he's a shill that you can see right through it on his podcast and in writing. So, to me, it's just such a weak thing, because Pugmire's said some stuff where you're like, dude, come on. So, yeah, he's a shill, too. So, join the group. Get in line. It's a long one. I hope you pack to lunch and wear a mask. This is from Chris Williamson on Boxing Twitter. Some write crybabies about what? Oh, okay. Here we go. Have they seen or heard how Terry Norris or Meldrick Taylor are these days? Is that a better retirement for you? Mayweather has earned to do what he wants, and that's the whole point when he says, "All right, well, Terry Norris, so dudes that go broke, that's cool, but when Floyd didn't go broke, he comes back and he doesn't fight the top guys, then it's a problem. It is what it is." Here's another one. Is it just me, or does Crawford get promoted more the weekend of a Spence fight than the weekend of his own fight? I mean, somewhat. Oh, also Spence says I'm going back. He's going back to his strength and conditioning trainer. He said, "Yeah, I have to stop trying to do everything myself." He said, "I'm also getting a nutritionist and getting back with a strength conditioner," and that makes sense. Oh, this is interesting. Actually, I'm glad that I went through this, and I have time to get this in because there might be an announcement. After, if, assuming, of course, Anthony Joshua gets back by Pulev, there might be an announcement for the Tyson Fury fight. This was on Twitter, and I noticed this when he said it in the IFL TV. And this guy even says it's at 17 minutes and 10-second mark, listening to the most recent Eddie Hearn interview. He says, "You will see on Saturday how close we are to the fight being made." So that probably tells you something, right? As long as real boxing continues, I'm cool with the occasional exhibition entertainment events. I hope no grown men that watch wrestling have an issue with that. That's a good point. Everybody has their own value when it comes to entertainment. This is hilarious. Charlie Z has never been closer to a title shot than he is right now. Just needs to get those YouTube numbers up a bit. It's a good one. Oh, this was funny. What started in the modern day with Mayweather and McGregor, and when we say modern day in boxing, that generally includes 80s and 70s, because as I responded to this guy on Twitter, in 1976, Ali fought somebody that wasn't a boxer. Anyway, what started in the modern day with Mayweather versus McGregor rolled onto Eddie's LA YouTube night. Well, he did more than just LA, he did a Miami too. Then parked recently with Tyson Jones, is set to get worse. Boxing is totally utter clusterfuck of a sport to allow and encourage this guff in the first place. When you say allow, it's a clusterfuck because they allow it or encourage it? Encourage it? Okay. But allow? What do you mean allow? People have the right to do whatever the fuck they want when it comes to this situation. So I don't agree with that. But the whole, in the modern day, the first time we've ever heard of this thing, this exhibition, is 2017. It's like, dude, the modern day? I don't know if that's the correct terminology. This is Rick Murata. Excuse me. Easy to lose passion for boxing when the best fighters don't seem to have real interest in fighting. And they're obviously talking about Spence and Crawford because they want Manny first and bringing up the Four Kings and all that. Bruce Trampler of Top Rank said, Rich, keep it real, please. How can you have the best versus the best without selling tickets? It's only the biggest fight if you get a big crowd paying the prices. TV alone can't pay versus, plus undercard expenses. And that is true for some fights. Now, this whole best versus best because Spence and Crawford won't happen, or even when Golovkin and Canelo took about an extra year and a half. To me, it's like, guys, but do you realize, one, how many good to great fights we've had? Do you realize, one, just how much boxing is on? Which there's too much boxing. We've already discussed that. But, like, the amount of unifications, the amount of lineal titles, the amount of, like, if you compare the last 5 years to 5 years before that, we have better fights. And more fighters are getting more attention than they would on. You had to work your way up just to get on HBO. Well, we're starting to see a contender going through something because not even everybody got on Friday Night Fights. And as we know, the last chunk of years of Friday Night Fights, it was really hit or miss. It wasn't these great matchups, you know. So, you know, you can focus on one fight. That's cool. But to sit there and not act like we haven't had, I mean, 2019 was an awesome year, dude. Name me in the last 10 years a better year than 2019. Well, you could say, what, 2013? 2015, 2017, 18. I mean, come on. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of shit to complain about, but let's focus on good too, or corruption too, not just, you know, politics. It's as if it's brand new. I mean, ever since HBO and Showtime, you know, started breaking up and HBO, you know, kicked Al Heyman off and yada yada. Anyway, Ryan Garcia's I promise you. This is the Dan Raphael's tweet. Ryan Garcia, I promise you I will do whatever it takes to make that fight. He's talking about maybe Garcia and Gervonta will actually fight next year, not just talk about it, tease us like Spence and Crawford. And that's what Garcia says. I'll promise I'll make it. But as we know, you know, it seems like Oscar wants Teofimo. Dare I say, this is from, Dare I say that nowhere is boxing's fall from grace more apparent than it's who gets paid to cover the sport full time. My God, that's money. I enjoy, this actually comes from a guy who's very pro Crawford. I enjoy and respect Spence as a boxer and even more so as a guy that's overcome some self-imposed adversity. But as a fan, it's hard to get behind him because of his comments and his overall approach with, you know, the nonsense dismissive of Crawford. And I understand what he's saying, but did he have that same problem, you know, when he talked about Spence Crawford or not talked about anything after some of his fights? I doubt it. Oh, here we go. Rick Glazier a year ago. For all you glaze heads. Not good. Being told by a reliable source, Errol Spence is much, much worse than announced by the Spin Masters associated with the PBC. And chances of Errol ever fighting again are very slim. Let's pray for Errol. God bless Errol. That's the glaze. Oh, here we go. More of this shit. Video, it says. Lopez outlanded Lomachenko in just 3 rounds and landed 50% less overall. I've heard that before. He didn't land 50% less more. What are you talking about? Well, here it is again. When the footage is slowed down, you can see a lot of shots that Lopez was credited for were blocked. Dog, he lost the fight. Get over it. I bet anyone $150,000 Spence beats Crawford. That's Jojo Diaz. Wow. People might not want to admit it, but Spence versus Garcia is a tune-up fight, which is bullshit. Now, you can say it shouldn't be on pay-per-view. That's what he says next, but it's not a tune-up fight. I fully expect Spence and Crawford will be the next. And that's not based off wishful thinking. That's reading the tea leaves. Spence knocking out Garcia somehow would apply a tad more pressure. So he's reading the tea leaves, and he's telling me don't get my hopes up for Spence, even though some of the tea leaves go the other way. Here's a really good quote, tweet. When Duva controlled undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield, he agreed to give a title shot to Bo last November, that November, with the stipulation if Bo won, Duva would receive 28% of his future title earnings. I mean, think about that. We talk about politics getting in the way and negotiating and back and forth, and we don't want to hear it and all that. Duva, from Main Event, he was saying, yeah, we'll have Holyfield and Riddick Bowe fight, but only if Bo wins, then I get 28% of his future earnings? Wow. What, is that how you guys want it again? Where the fighters get screwed? Okay. Let's just act like now is the only time politics has come into it. Crawford, let's all be real for a moment. Tyson cannot fuck with them big boys out there. So stop trying to get the man hurt. I wouldn't want to see my guy go back out there, with that. And I totally agree, man. Crawford hit it on the nose. Like, how bad do you want it to get for these guys? Like, come on. One more, and then we're out. Danny helped pack the 16,000 fans during the pandemic. One of boxing top names helped elevate a guy that is elite in this era and badly needed a name opponent to get him to the next level. Good for boxing that Spence got hometown win, because now with Bud makes their star more equal instead of Crawford's name carrying the promotion. Oh, wow, man. That is just funny. That is just classic fanboy stuff. Anyway, we're going to shut this thing down. You guys enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll be back next week. Peace.